The rhythmic clatter of old machinery filled Elias's workshop on Astor 7 station, punctuated by occasional bursts of childish giggles. 7-year-old Nia sat cross-legged on the grimy floor, carefully painting yellow, smiley faces on the dusty chassis of an ancient repair drone. "Dad, why does Mr. Worry always beep when I paint his face?" she asked, pressing bright blue fingerprints along the machine's sensors. Elias looked up from his workbench, where he wrestled with a malfunctioning food vendor unit. His grease-stained hands paused over a tangle of wires. "Because, kiddo, you keep painting over his optical sensors. Poor thing can't see when you do that." The repair shop occupied a cramped corner of Astor 7's lower deck, squeezed between a black market electronics stall and a hydroponics bay. Spare parts cluttered every available surface. Defunct servos, cracked power cells, and enough obsolete hull plating to build a small shuttle. The walls were a patchwork of exposed conduits and hand-painted warnings about electrical hazards. "Can I fix things too?" Nia asked, abandoning her art project to poke at the vendor unit's exposed innards. "Careful," Elias warned, though his tone carried more fondness than concern. "That thing might still have some charge in it. Remember what happened last time?" The girl giggled, touching the small bandage on her finger. "It went zappy, and you said lots of words Mama Jin told me never to repeat." Elias chuckled, shaking his head. Mama Jin ran the orphanage where he'd found Nia 3 years ago, abandoned and frightened during the station's power crisis. The old woman had strict ideas about appropriate language around children. The afternoon shifted to evening as station time ticked forward. Elias sent his single functional service drone, Clank, to patrol the shop's perimeter before locking up. Nia yawned, rubbing paint-covered fingers across her eyelids and creating a rainbow panda effect that made Elias smile. "Time for bed, Rainbow Panda. I need to check the storage bay before we head up." They walked through the maze of salvaged equipment toward the rear storage area. Nia chattered about her latest creation, a drawing of Dad with robot wings, while Elias mentally tallied tomorrow's repair jobs. Rent was due on the workshop, and the station authority had been cracking down on unauthorized modifications lately. He was reaching for the storage bay access panel when he heard something that made his mechanic instincts twitch, the almost imperceptible sound of controlled breathing where there should be none. "Nia, wait here a second," he murmured, motioning her to stay by the door. The storage bay held stacks of deactivated machinery, spare parts, and enough dust to carpet a small moon. Everything appeared as he'd left it that morning, except for a slight displacement in the far corner, where a protective tarp had been disturbed. Moving cautiously, Elias approached the covered equipment. His heart hammered as he gripped the edge of the tarp and yanked it aside. A woman crouched there, pressed against the wall like a cornered animal. She was unlike any human Elias had seen, with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and eyes that glowed faintly amber in the dim storage bay. Her clothing, once sleek and functional, was torn and splattered with something suspiciously like blood. Metal plates were visible beneath the damaged fabric, suggesting cybernetic enhancements. Those amber eyes locked onto his, filled with exhaustion and something else, fear but not of him. Fear of being caught. "Please," she rasped, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "Don't sound the alarm." Elias stood frozen, his mind racing through the implications. Astor 7 had strict policies about harboring fugitives, and this woman, whatever she was, clearly fell into that category. Behind him, he heard Nia's small footsteps approaching. "Dad, what's taking so long? Did you find another robot?" The strange woman's gaze shifted to Nia, and something flickered across her face. Confusion at first, then deeper puzzlement as Nia came into view. "The child," the woman whispered. "She called you Dad." It wasn't a question exactly, but the way she said it suggested the word held some foreign meaning she couldn't grasp. Elias moved protectively between them, though the woman made no threatening gestures. "Nia, go wait by the workshop door. I'll be there in a minute." "But Dad, now please." His daughter's disappointed sigh echoed as she shuffled away. Elias turned back to the intruder, keeping his voice low. Who are you, and what are you doing in my storage bay? My name is Talia. She struggled to her feet, moving with obvious pain but maintaining a warrior's poise. I seek temporary shelter. Nothing more. From what? Forces that would kill this entire station to capture me. Her amber eyes bored into his. I have no intention of bringing harm to you or your offspring, but I need somewhere to recover. Elias studied her, mechanic's eyes noting the extensive damage to her equipment and the barely controlled tremor in her stance. She was at the edge of her endurance. How long? 2 days. 3 at most. I have sustenance. I only require a space to remain undetected. He glanced toward the workshop where Nia waited. Every instinct told him this was trouble, the kind that got good people hurt. But another part, the part that had adopted an orphan child, recognized desperation when he saw it. 2 days, he agreed finally. But if you bring any danger to my daughter, I offer my life as surety, Talia interrupted, pressing a fist to her chest in what might have been a formal gesture. The child will remain safe. Her name is Nia. He grabbed a clean shop cloth from a nearby shelf. And you can start by cleaning up that blood before someone notices. As Talia moved to comply, Elias caught himself wondering what he'd just agreed to. Aster, 7 had its share of questionable activities, smuggling, black market modifications, the occasional identity broker, but hiding what appeared to be a military-grade alien warrior? That was new territory, even for him. Dad, Nia's voice carried from the workshop. I found a new place to put smiley faces. He winced, imagining what essential piece of equipment she'd discovered. I'll be right there. Turning back to Talia, he gestured to a stack of emergency blankets. Stay quiet. I'll bring you some proper supplies tomorrow. Her amber eyes followed him with an intensity that suggested she was cataloging every detail, every weakness, every potential threat. Or perhaps she was simply trying to understand why a human would help a stranger who could potentially endanger his child. As Elias sealed the storage bay behind him, he realized he wasn't entirely sure himself. In the workshop, Nia had indeed found another canvas for her artistic expression, the quantum calculator he'd been saving for a particularly complex repair job. Bright purple stars now decorated its display screen. That's creative, kiddo. He lifted her to his hip. But maybe next time ask before painting the expensive equipment. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Sorry, Dad. I just wanted to make it pretty. His heart tightened, as it always did when she called him that simple word. 3 years ago, he'd been a solitary repairman living hand-to-mouth on Aster 7. Now he was responsible for a whole human being, a bright, curious, slightly destructive human being who saw beauty in broken things. And apparently, he just added protecting a fugitive alien warrior to his list of responsibilities. Let's go home, Rainbow Panda. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. As they climbed the narrow stairs to his living quarters above the workshop, neither of them saw the figure watching from the shadows near the station's communication array. Nor did they notice how that figure's prosthetic arm gleamed with the characteristic polish of Imperial service equipment. Part 2. Morning on Aster, 7 began with the station's atmospheric processors cycling to day shift mode, gradually brightening the corridor lighting and increasing humidity to simulate planetary dawn. Elias had been awake for hours, his mind churning over the implications of his decision to harbor Talia. Nia burst into consciousness like a supernova, immediately demanding pancakes and asking if she could paint flowers on a coffee maker. By the time Elias had fed her and sent her to Mrs. Tang's daycare, a converted cargo bay 3 decks up, he was already running behind on his morning tasks. The storage bay looked different in artificial daylight. Talia had cleared a small space for herself, arranging spare parts and equipment with military precision. She was awake when he entered, amber eyes tracking his movements with predatory awareness. The blood had been cleaned from her clothing, though the damage remained evident. I brought supplies, he said, setting down a bag containing medical patches, nutrient packs, and a set of his old overalls. The med patches should help with whatever those marks are. She examined them warily. Your kindness is unexpected. Yeah. Well, don't get used to it. I'm an engineer who works on machines. I fix things. Sometimes that translates to people. He paused, considering his words. Speaking of which, what exactly are you running from? I told you. You told me they'd kill the station to get you. That's a pretty big threat to drop on someone. He leaned against a crate of spare actuators. I've got a kid to protect, so I need facts. Something shifted in her expression. Respect, perhaps, for his directness. I deserted my post in the Dominion fleet. They call me traitor. She touched a patch of damaged cybernetics visible through her torn clothing. These were gifts for exemplary service. Now they are markers for my execution. Dominion fleet? As in, empire that controls 23 systems and has a reputation for turning resistance planets into orbital debris. Her amber eyes narrowed. You are informed for a repair technician. I read the station news feeds. Hard to miss when a Dominion cruiser parks in orbit and demands inspection rights. He studied her more carefully. What did you do to warrant that kind of response? I refuse an order. Civilians were not valid military targets, despite what the fleet command dictated. A weight lifted from Elias's chest. Not entirely, but enough to make breathing easier. At least she wasn't some mass murderer. So, you're the good guy in this story? There are no good beings in my story. She began applying the medical patches with practiced efficiency. Only those who serve and those who rebel. The workshop bell chimed, signaling a customer. Elias cursed under his breath. Stay here. Don't make a sound. I'll be back when I close this evening. Your offspring, Talia said as he turned to leave. She called you father. Yeah, she does that. But she is not of your genetic material. He frowned. How can you tell? I am trained to identify species, bloodlines, and genetic markers. She paused. Parental affection without genetic bond. It is novel. It's called adoption. Pretty common concept. Not in the Dominion. Her head tilted with bird-like curiosity. Offspring are assigned based on genetic optimization programs. Emotional attachments are inefficient. Yeah, well, we humans can be pretty inefficient sometimes. He checked the door seal. Try not to overthink it while I'm gone. The day proceeded with its usual chaos. Elias repaired a hydroponics controller that sparked every 30 seconds, recalibrated a navigation AI that kept insisting Aster 7 was actually planet Xiphus 2, and diagnosed a food processor that was creating flavor combinations its previous owner hadn't requested, like anchovy strawberry smoothies. Between jobs, his mind wandered to his unexpected guest. The Dominion's reputation for ruthlessness was well known throughout the system. Their deserters typically ended up as cautionary tales broadcast on multiple wavelengths. It's something about Talia didn't fit the brutal warrior stereotype. The way she'd reacted to Nia, calling him father, suggested a deeper unfamiliarity with basic human relationships. Around midday, he found himself needing specialized components that weren't in his workshop inventory. New capacitors for a plasma cutter couldn't be jury-rigged from spare parts. He'd have to visit the station's central marketplace, a sprawling bazaar of legitimate commerce and decidedly less legitimate transactions. Elias closed the workshop early, picked up Nia from daycare, and headed to the storage bay. Talia was exactly where he'd left her, though now she wore his old overalls, which fit her lanky frame surprisingly well. Her obsidian skin created an interesting contrast with the faded blue fabric. I need to go shopping, he explained. You can't stay here alone. Standard security sweeps happen randomly. You'll have to come with us. She stared at him. You propose I accompany you into populated areas? I propose you don't want to get caught in a security sweep because you're too proud to walk through a market. He tossed her a baseball cap and sunglasses from his collection of gift shop rejects. Keep your head down. Don't talk unless necessary. And for heaven's sake, try not to look like a trained killer. Dad, Nia piped up. Is Miss Alien coming with us? Her name is Talia. Remember? He shot the alien a warning look. We're helping her find new parts for her. Spaceship. Cool. Can I show her my drawings? Talia looked between them, clearly struggling with the concept of being included in their casual outing. Aye. The child wishes to display visual representations to me. Just nod and smile, Elias muttered. We've got work to do. The marketplace occupied Aster 7's central hub, a massive domed section where artificial sky projections and careful lighting created the illusion of being planetside. Stalls and shops branched out in organic patterns, selling everything from hydroponic vegetables to black market weapons modifications. Nia chattered continuously, telling Talia about her favorite candy vendor, who always gave extra, the scary man who sold robot parts, which are Talia's kind of parts now, and the time she'd gotten lost but found her way back by following the smell of fried food. Talia listened with apparent fascination, her amber eyes hidden behind sunglasses, head tilted to track every interaction. Elias watched her carefully as they navigated the crowded aisles, noting how her muscles tensed at sudden movements, how her hand twitched toward where a weapon might have been carried. They'd almost reached his usual parts supplier when Nia tugged on Talia's pant leg. "Can I have credits for ice cream? Please." "Credits?" Talia looked down at the child. "She wants money for a frozen treat." Elias translated, already reaching for his digital wallet. 10 credits, Nia. Don't wander off." As Nia skipped toward the ice cream vendor, Talia turned to Elias. "The child requests resources with courtesy terms. In the Dominion, offspring demand based on rank and genetic value. Must make family dinners real fun," he remarked dryly. "Here, kids learn manners. They say please and thank you because it's how we build relationships." "Relationships," she echoed, as if testing the word's weight. "You invest resources in a being that shares no genetic imperative for your survival." "That's a really clinical way to say you love your daughter," Elias observed, selecting capacitors from his supplier's inventory. "Love doesn't need genetic imperatives." Love. Another word she seemed to taste. A chemical reaction promoting species survival. He paid for the components, surprised to find himself explaining basic emotions to an advanced alien warrior. It's more than that. It's choosing to care about someone, to put their needs above your own desires. It's a commotion at the ice cream vendor cut him off. Nia had collided with someone, a maintenance worker in station coveralls, spilling her ice cream down his uniform. The man's face reddened as Nia apologized profusely. "Watch where you're going, you little street rat," the worker snarled, raising his hand. Before Elias could react, Talia had moved. One moment she was beside him. The next, she stood between the angry worker and Nia, her entire bearing radiating controlled violence despite the concealing hat and glasses. "The offspring expressed remorse," she stated flatly. "Your response is disproportionate." The worker took in her imposing height and seemingly automatic threat assessment protocols put him in reverse. "Whatever. Just keep the brat under control." He shuffled away quickly, and Talia turned to Nia, who was staring up at her with wide eyes. The alien seemed uncertain how to proceed. "You showed protectiveness," she said carefully, "toward a being you only met yesterday." Nia's lower lip trembled. "I didn't mean to spill it. I was telling him about the time Dad fixed a robot with only a screwdriver and—" Talia crouched to eye level with the child, a gesture that surprised Elias with its naturalness. Accidents occur in all species. The male displayed improper behavioral conditioning. She glanced up at Elias. "Should we acquire replacement frozen sustenance?" He smiled, catching the slight question in her voice. "Yes, Talia. We should buy her another ice cream." As they waited in line again, Elias noticed several things. How Talia positioned herself to observe all approaches, how her hand stayed near Nia's shoulder in a protective gesture, and how she seemed to study every interaction between parent and child they encountered. They just purchased a replacement cone when Elias spotted someone he'd rather have avoided. Kardec, a trader who dealt in both legitimate ship parts and decidedly illegitimate intelligence. The Thrixin's 6 eyes swiveled independently, allowing him to monitor multiple conversations simultaneously. Kardec's purchase appendages waved in greeting. "Elias. And what's this? Family outing with exotic company." "Just shopping for parts," Elias replied curtly, trying to edge past. "Parts for what, I wonder?" Two of Kardec's eyes focused on Talia while the others scanned the crowd. "Nothing specific to Dominion technology, I hope. Word is they're offering significant rewards for information about certain missing assets." Every muscle in Talia's body coiled like spring steel. Her hands slowly moved behind Nia, ready to push her away if necessary. "We're not interested in Dominion business," Elias said firmly. Of course. Kardec's translator crackled with what might have been amusement. "Though I hear their search teams can be quite thorough. Aster 7's neutrality only extends so far when major powers come calling." The trader moved on, but his words lingered like toxic fumes. Elias grabbed Nia's free hand, noting how Talia remained between them and the crowds. "We should return to your workshop," Talia suggested quietly. "The information broker has confirmed pursuit." Back at the shop, they secured everything before heading to the storage bay. Nia, satisfied with her ice cream adventure, announced she was drawing a picture of Miss Talia saving the day. As his daughter settled with paper and crayons, Elias turned to his unexpected guest. "You moved to protect Nia without thinking about it." The child showed no combat capability. "Protection was logical. That's not why you did it." He studied her carefully. "You reacted emotionally." She bristled. "I possess no emotional responses. Was a tactical operative." "Sure. And that's why you looked at that worker like you were calculating 17 different ways to disable him." Her amber eyes, now visible without the sunglasses, met his. "Perhaps I am malfunctioning. Or perhaps," he suggested gently, "you're discovering you have feelings after all." Before she could respond, Nia looked up from her drawing. "Talia, do you have a family somewhere?" The alien froze. Such a simple question, yet it seemed to strike with the force of plasma fire. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. No. The Dominion fleet is my only structure." "That's sad," Nia declared with childhood bluntness. "Everyone should have family. Right, Dad?" Elias met Talia's gaze across the storage bay. In those amber depths, he saw something raw and unguarded, a glimpse of longing so quickly shuddered he might have imagined it. "Right, kiddo. Everyone should have family." Part 3. 3 days passed in a careful dance of normalcy and subterfuge. Elias maintained his workshop routines while Talia remained hidden in the storage bay, though their evening conversations became longer and more complex as the alien woman struggled to grasp human concepts of family and belonging. On the 4th morning, as Elias prepared to drop Nia at daycare, the workshop security system chimed an unusual pattern. Clank had detected someone loitering near the entrance for 15 minutes, behavior suggesting surveillance rather than customer interest. "Talia," Elias called into the storage bay intercom. "We might have visitors." She emerged moments later, having fashioned makeshift combat gear from workshop materials, protective plates, reinforced gloves, and what looked like an improvised energy weapon using a power cell and some calibration tools. "Impressive," he admitted. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." The child, already with Mrs. Tang. Whatever happens, Nia stays safe. They waited in tense silence, monitoring feeds from Clank's exterior cameras. The lurker resolved into a thin, graying woman wearing station maintenance coveralls. She knocked with precise, measured reps. Elias unsealed the door. "We open at 8. Come back then." "I'm not here as a customer," the woman replied in clipped tones. "My name is Coordinator Vasquez. I manage this sector's security protocols." Talia had positioned herself behind a repair station, but Elias felt her readiness like static charge in the air. "What can I do for you, Coordinator?" Vasquez's eyes scanned the workshop with practiced efficiency. "We've received inquiries about unusual power signatures in this area, the kind associated with Dominion military hardware. Must be interference from my quantum welders. I'll recalibrate them." "See that you do." She paused, hand resting on the doorframe. "Also, we've heard reports of refugees arriving via unofficial channels. Aster 7 maintains strict neutrality. We cannot afford to harbor fugitives from powers like the Dominion." "Understood." After she left, Talia emerged from her hiding spot. "They know. The information broker's warning was accurate. They suspect. Big difference." Elias began packing a bag with supplies. "But we need a backup plan. There's an abandoned mining complex in the asteroid belt. Small craft can dock there. You would help me leave? The question carried unexpected weight. Elias studied her face, noting how her amber eyes had become almost familiar over these past days. If staying puts Nia at risk, then yes. But he hesitated. You haven't asked about leaving since that first night. Talia glanced around the workshop. I find myself curious about this place. Your methodologies are inefficient yet satisfying. A loud bang from the storage bay interrupted them. They rushed in to find Nia had somehow arrived and was now triumphantly holding up a previously malfunctioning proximity sensor. I fixed it, she announced proudly. See? It was just sleeping. I woke it up. Mrs. Tang appeared moments later, apologetic. I'm sorry, Elias. She disappeared the moment I turned my back. It's fine, he sighed, lifting Nia. The proximity sensor was indeed functional now, though he couldn't imagine how a 7-year-old had accomplished in minutes what had stumped him for days. After Mrs. Tang left, with strict instructions to actually watch his daughter this time, Nia settled onto a workbench and kicked her legs happily. Talia, can I ask you something? The alien crouched beside her. Over the past days, she'd lost some of her military stiffness around the child. Affirmative. Do you ever wish you had a family? Talia's perfectly still form suggested she was accessing something buried deep. In the Dominion, we are told families create weakness. Emotional attachments compromise efficiency. But what do you think? Nia pressed with characteristic persistence. I think. Talia glanced at Elias, then back to Nia. I have never experienced such connections to know if they create weakness or strength. You're experiencing them now, Elias pointed. Out. You've stayed here longer than your 2 days. Before Talia could respond, Clank wheeled in urgently, projecting a security alert hologram. 3 figures had entered the workshop's outer corridor, their gait and scanning patterns marking them as professionally trained. Seekers, Talia identified immediately. Dominion retrieval specialists. Dad, Nia's voice carried a tremor. Elias grabbed her, already calculating their limited options. Talia, the back passage leads to maintenance tunnels. You need to. No. She moved to the workshop's main controls, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. I will not run while they threaten your home. Listen to me, Elias hissed. Getting caught helps no one. Think tactically. I am. Her eyes burned amber fire as station systems responded to her commands. This is my fight. I brought it here. I will end it here. The workshop's security boards lit up as Talia tapped into station-wide monitoring. Camera feeds revealed the 3 seekers coordinating their approach, weapons concealed but ready. They wore civilian clothing, but their movements betrayed extensive combat training. They'll cut power first, she murmured, studying their patterns. Then concussion weapons to minimize collateral damage. And then, they retrieve me. Execute anyone who sheltered me. Standard protocol. Fear and anger warred in Elias's chest. They'd kill us? Even Nia? Nia. Talia repeated the name softly. She turned to face them both. I swore my life as surety for her safety. That oath still stands. The workshop's power flickered, once, twice. Talia had already activated emergency lighting and sealed the main doors. She moved with decisive precision, creating barriers from heavy equipment and positioning sensor arrays to track movement through walls. They will attempt negotiation first, she explained, directing Elias and Nia to the reinforced storage vault. Threats offered clemency for cooperation. When that fails, her words were cut short by a voice that filled the workshop through the external speakers. Deep, mechanical, and utterly without mercy. Fugitive Epsilon 7 Talia. Surrender for immediate processing. You have 1 station cycle to comply. Epsilon, Elias whispered. Talia's laugh held bitter humor. My designation. 7 units of 7 warriors. I was the last survivor before I left. This unit contains innocent civilians, the voice continued. They need not share your fate. Comply to ensure their safety. Talia activated the workshop's own communication array. Seeker team. This is Epsilon 7 Talia. Your information is outdated. These civilians are under my protection. I will not surrender. A pause. Then, your protection endangers them. We have orders to eliminate all witnesses to your defection. The words hung in the air like radiation. Elias felt Nia's small arms tighten around his neck. They weren't just collateral damage. They were targets now simply for helping. There's something else, Talia said quietly, accessing deeper station systems. They're not just here for me. That data I carry, it details Dominion operations in neutral sectors. War crimes, technically, by neutral standards. The Dominion recognizes no laws but its own. Her fingers stilled on the controls. If they acquire this data through official channels, they can claim discovery through legitimate means. Understanding crystallized. But if they have to kill witnesses to retrieve it, then the data cannot be introduced as evidence. Talia turned to face him. I brought more than personal danger to your threshold. Despite everything, Elias found himself analyzing the situation as he would a complex repair problem. Then we can't let them have the data or kill us. Limited options. I could initiate station-wide security protocols. Lock down this sector. But it would only buy us hours before they override the systems or Aster. 7 surrenders to avoid conflict. Or, Nia piped up from his arms, we could fix them like robots. Find what's broken and make it better. Both adults stared at her. She has a point, Elias mused. People like this, broken in a whole different way than your usual deserter. They function only within their system. Outside it, they malfunction, Talia finished, understanding dawning. If we can demonstrate that surrendering serves no purpose. An explosion rocked the outer door. The Seekers had apparently tired of negotiations. Vault. Now, Elias carried Nia to the secure storage area while Talia began implementing her plan. What are you going to do? Nia asked as her father secured her in the vault. Miss Talia and I are going to reprogram some very confused robots, he told her, trying for a smile. You stay here where it's safe, okay? No matter what you hear. As he sealed the vault door, Nia pressed her hand against the transparent panel. Be careful, Dad. You too, Talia. Something flickered across Talia's face. Surprise, warmth, uncertainty. She placed her hand on the vault's exterior, mirroring Nia's gesture. We shall return, she promised. Then she turned to Elias. How do we reprogram beings trained from birth to be loyal? He grinned, grabbing his toolbox. Same way you fix any malfunction. Find the trigger that's causing the error and change the conditions. They worked frantically as energy blasts ate away at the workshop's defenses. Talia networked the station's internal systems while Elias assembled something he'd been theorizing about for months. A field disruptor that could temporarily disable focused energy weapons within a confined space. The main door buckled. 3 figures pushed through the smoke. 2 humanoid, 1 distinctly reptilian. All 3 showed the telltale signs of extensive cybernetic enhancement. Their weapons locked on Talia immediately. Epsilon 7 Talia, the reptilian seeker stated. Submit for processing. Counterproposal, Talia replied. I submit if you grant clemency to the civilians. The lead seeker, human in appearance but with obviously manufactured eyes, shook his head. Parameters changed. All witnesses require termination. Official order stands. Then explain this. Talia triggered a holographic display, broadcasting on all channels, including the station's public network. Dominion Incident Report Sigma 439. Civilian pacification of Kepler Station resulted in 40,000 casualties. Cause: evidence of treaty violations required witness elimination. The holograms shifted to tactical reports, ship manifests, and recorded orders, all detailing various instances where the Dominion had eliminated potential witnesses to their activities in neutral space. The Seekers remained unmoved. Broadcasting classified data compounds your treason. Does it? Elias stepped forward, triggering his disruptor. The Seekers' weapons sputtered and died. Here's the thing about evidence. Once it's public, killing witnesses doesn't help contain it. Your technology is primitive, the reptilian began, switching to backup weapons. A new voice cut through the tension. Coordinator Vasquez, broadcasting station-wide. Dominion representatives, this is Aster 7 Security Command. We have copies of all transmitted data. Consider this station's neutrality officially breached. You have 1 hour to withdraw all assets or face Alliance intervention. The lead seeker's synthetic eyes focused on Elias. You orchestrated this. He provided sanctuary to someone who asked for help, Talia corrected. I executed the protocols. Your own training should have identified this probable outcome. Cornered operative, sympathetic civilians, evidence of command-level corruption. Classic destabilization scenario. For the first time, uncertainty rippled through the Seekers' ranks. Their programming couldn't have prepared them for their own tactics being used against them. We require the data storage matrix. The reptilian tried again, but with less conviction. Talia reached behind her neck, extracting a small crystalline device. All data has been transmitted. This is empty. She crushed it in her palm. Your mission parameters are invalid. The workshop fell silent except for failing systems and settling metal. Finally, the lead seeker lowered his weapon. Orders. Unclear. Return to base for reassignment. The three figures turned and left, their movements less certain than when they arrived. As soon as they cleared the threshold, alarms throughout the station announced Dominion ships withdrawing from Aster 7 space. Elias collapsed against a workbench, exhaustion hitting him like a gravity wave. That was effective, Talia finished, but she was already moving toward the vault. She unsealed it carefully, revealing Nia unharmed but wide-eyed. Did you fix the broken people? Nia asked. We revealed their malfunction, Talia agreed. Sometimes awareness is the first step toward repair. Over the following days, Aster 7 returned to its peculiar form of normalcy. The Dominion's brief attempt at aggressive retrieval had rattled several systems, but the station's reputation for useful neutrality remained intact. What changed was the small dynamic within the workshop's walls. Talia helped reorganize the storage bay, her military efficiency creating an order that even Elias had never achieved. Nia adopted her as a willing student, teaching the alien warrior how to properly paint smiley faces on machines. They have to be happy faces because machines work better when they're happy, and insisting Talia join their evening rituals of shared meals and story time. On the 5th evening, as Elias prepared a simple dinner of recycled protein and station-grown vegetables, Nia asked the question that had been floating unspoken around them. Is Talia going to stay with us? Both adults paused. Elias looked to Talia, who slowly set down the tool she'd been examining. I am a fugitive, she said carefully. My presence creates risk factors. But the Seekers left, Nia pointed out with irrefutable child logic. And you fixed all our machines. And you promised to keep me safe. Promises have end parameters. Talia, Elias interrupted gently. What do you want? She looked at him, then at Nia, then around the workshop that had already absorbed evidence of her presence. Her custom tool arrangements, her sketches for improved system efficiency, her makeshift sleeping area that had evolved from basic survival needs to something more permanent. She struggled with the concept. I have never been asked what I desire beyond mission objectives. Well, Elias said, serving up portions, you're off duty now. Engineer's privilege, we get to want things. The meal proceeded with Nia chattering about her latest art project, a mural for the community center depicting All My Family, which apparently now included Talia alongside various workshop robots and Mrs. Tang as a supplementary grandmother figure. After dinner, as Elias cleaned dishes and Nia worked on another drawing, Talia approached him quietly. The child includes me in her conception of family. She tends to do that. Nia has this way of deciding who belongs and stubbornly insisting until everyone else accepts it. And you? Do you accept it? He paused in his washing, considering. I'm a pretty practical guy, Talia. I accept that you're incredibly overqualified to be my workshop assistant, that you've probably saved our lives at least once, and that watching you learn about simple things like ice cream makes my daughter smile. These are practical considerations. They are. He dried his hands and turned to face her. But here's the impractical part. I also like having someone to talk to who understands why I get excited about a perfectly calibrated servo motor. A ghost of amusement touched her features. Your servo enthusiasm is endearing. They worked together in comfortable silence until Nia's bedtime. As Elias tucked her in, she clutched her favorite stuffed creature. A plush asteroid miner Talia had won at the station's monthly market fair. Dad, yeah, kiddo. Talia doesn't know how to say I love you, but I think she knows how it feels. He kissed her forehead. What makes you think that? Because she looks at us the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. Elias smoothed her hair back. Sleep tight, rainbow panda. In the workshop, Talia was studying schematics for a new repair drone design when he returned. The damaged parts of the shop had been cleaned and reorganized. Those scorch marks on the walls remained as reminders of recent events. She's a perceptive child, Talia observed without looking up. She has her moments. He grabbed another chair and sat beside her. Talia, I need to ask you something directly. She finally met his gaze. Do you want to stay? Not because you have nowhere else to go, not because it's convenient or safe, but because you want to be here with us. Her amber eyes held steady. One is a concept I'm still learning to recognize. Fair enough. Let me rephrase. Do you feel anything when you imagine leaving? She closed the schematics, her attention fully on him now. I've been trained extensively in tactical analysis. Every scenario I've run regarding departure leads to suboptimal outcomes. Suboptimal how? The child would ask when I'm returning. You would adapt your systems back to previous inefficiencies. I would resume solitary existence without purpose beyond survival. She paused. The mathematical efficiency of remaining exceeds the risks. He couldn't help smiling. That's the most logical declaration of wanting to stay I've ever heard. Logic is my comfort zone. Fair point. He considered for a moment. Want to try something illogical? That seems counterproductive. Humor me. He stood and walked to the small audio system, selecting a particular track. Soft music filled the workshop, an old earth ballad about finding home where the heart is. Humans sometimes celebrate belonging with movement coordination rituals. You're suggesting we engage in rhythmic motion for bonding purposes? I'm asking if you want to dance with me. She stood slowly, approaching as if the music might pose a threat. I am trained in multiple combat forms. This is likely inferior. Probably. But that's not the point. He held out his hand. She studied it for a moment before taking it, her grip precise and her posture perfect for combat engagement. Relax, he encouraged, placing his other hand gently on her waist. It's not about efficiency. It's about... He paused. Actually, I'm not sure what it's about. Connection, maybe? They swayed awkwardly to the music, Talia's movements initially robotic but gradually softening as she allowed the rhythm to guide her. Her amber eyes studied his, face with intense concentration, as if memorizing each feature. Elias, she said quietly. Yeah. Earlier, when the child suggested I didn't know how to say I love you, she was correct. But I observe how you demonstrate it. Through protection, through patience, through inclusion in daily routines despite inefficiencies. He smiled, and I find myself repeating these behaviors without tactical justification. Good to know I'm not the only one without tactical justification. The music wound down, but they continued moving slowly. In that moment, within the cluttered workshop that had become an unlikely sanctuary, something fundamental had shifted. 3 individuals from different worlds, brought together by circumstance and welded by choice into something that resembled a family. Tomorrow, Talia said eventually, I will submit an application for temporary resident status. Coordinator Vasquez seems inclined toward approval after recent events. Practical decision? Partially. She met his gaze directly. Though I suspect the child's artistic representation of family may be more influential than my tactical analysis. They shared a laugh, his warm and familiar, hers still carrying the hesitant quality of someone discovering new experiences. From the living quarters above, Nia's voice carried down through the ventilation system. You're supposed to kiss after dancing. I saw in a movie it misses. Tangs. Both adults froze, then looked at each other with mixtures of surprise and amusement. Your offspring demonstrates remarkable observational skills, Talia noted. That's one way to put it. Elias chuckled. Though I think our dancing was pretty G-rated by any standard. Perhaps the child seeks narrative completion? Perhaps the child should be asleep. They stepped apart, the spell of the moment gently broken but not shattered. The workshop returned to its nighttime rhythm of humming machinery and settled metal, though the air felt different somehow, charged with possibilities rather than tension. Part 4. The market day arrived with its usual chaos, but this time Talia accompanied them openly, wearing civilian clothing that almost concealed her muscular build. Her hair, usually bound for combat readiness, hung loose in dark waves that softened her striking features. Nia had insisted on painting stars on Talia's cheeks for good luck, transforming the intimidating warrior into something approachable, if still alien. Remember, Elias instructed as they navigated the crowded aisles, try not to identify every potential threat or analyze structural weaknesses. Tactical awareness is not easily suppressed, Talia replied, though her eyes lingered longer on colorful displays than on defensive positions. Nia led them through her favorite sections, chattering excitedly about the pottery vendor who let her try the wheel, the spice merchant who smelled like adventures, and the toy maker who crafted articulated action figures that actually moved. Dad, can Talia meet Mr. Joram? Please. Nia tugged them toward the electronics recycling stall. Mr. Joram, a grizzled Zenirian with 4 arms and perpetually grease-stained scales, looked up from his latest project. His multicolored eyes focused on Talia with sharp intelligence. Well, the mechanic brings company. His voice carried the grinding harmony characteristic of his species. And what brings a former combat specialist to my humble scrap heap? Talia stiffened slightly. You know what I am. Scale I see many things. Warrior Huz. He gestured with 2 arms while continuing to work with the other 2. But on Aster 7, we judge based on actions, not origins. Talia fixed our quantum calculator. Nia announced proudly. And she's really good at soldering. Even better than Dad sometimes. Is that so? Joram's eyes gleamed with interest. Perhaps she'd care to examine my current project? Been troubling even my forehands. What followed was an hour of technical discussion that flew over Nia's head, but clearly delighted both Elias and Talia. The problem? A malfunctioning power distribution matrix with cascading failures. Require the kind of creative thinking Elias excelled at and the systematic approach Talia had honed through military training. They worked together seamlessly, passing tools without asking, finishing each other's diagnostic sentences, and celebrating small victories with shared smiles that grew increasingly natural. Joram observed with approval, occasionally offering another component or suggesting a different approach. When they successfully rerouted the power flow and stabilized the entire system, Joram presented them with a small device. Harmonic calibrator. Prototype. Might be useful for your workshop. We can't accept, Elias began, but Joram waved him off. Consider it payment for consultation. Besides, he glanced at Talia, I suspect other refugees may need similar expertise. Building community. Through shared knowledge, yes? After leaving Joram's stall, they continued through the market. Other vendors nodded in greeting, some offering samples or pointing out special items. Talia observed how Elias navigated the social web of the marketplace, exchanging technical tips with some, offering quick repairs to others, maintaining relationships that seemed equal parts business and friendship. In the Dominion, she commented quietly, transactions were purely functional. Value exchange for value. No additional connections. Must have been lonely, Elias observed. I had no frame of reference for comparison. At the food court, they settled at a shared table. Nia immediately befriended a group of children playing with musical rings, leaving Elias and Talia to watch while sharing spiced noodles and pressed fruit juice. Question, Talia began, twirling noodles with surprising precision. Why did Joram offer us the calibrator? Our work already benefited him. Because that's how communities work. You help because you can, and sometimes you get helped in return. Not always by the same person, not always immediately. Inefficient, maybe, but sustainable. He pointed to where Nia played with children of various species. See how they've already established game rules. Turn-taking, dispute resolution. They're building micro-society skills through play. Talia watched intently. The offspring designated you father despite genetic divergence. Now she incorporates me into family structures with equal ease. Is this typical human childhood behavior? For some kids, yeah. Families take lots of forms. He paused. Did you have childhood on your world? Offspring development was group managed by efficiency specialists. Individual attachments were discouraged. Her eyes remained on Nia. Now I wonder what I missed. Nothing that can't be experienced now, he suggested gently. She turned to him, amber eyes thoughtful. You speak as if adulthood doesn't preclude wonder. Doesn't have to. Watch. He selected a glowing fruit from their order and demonstrated how pressure on specific spots made it pulse with different rhythms. Station delicacies. Try it. She accepted the fruit cautiously, then experimented with the pressure points. A smile, genuine, not polite, transformed her face as the fruit responded with cascading lights. Impractical, she determined, still smiling, but aesthetically satisfying. The moment was interrupted by raised voices from the jewelry section. They looked up to see Nia backing away from a tall, imposing figure in station security colors. Not a regular officer, but someone with more elaborate insignia. Elias and Talia moved in unison, reaching Nia simultaneously. The security officer, actually an inspector by his rank markers, was explaining loudly about proper child supervision in market areas. She wasn't bothering anyone, Elias protested, lifting Nia to his hip. The children were playing together. Unsupervised minors create liability issues. As a parent, you should know better. Talia's entire demeanor shifted to something familiar, the contained violence of a predator identifying threat. The offspring has guardian supervision. Multiple guardians, in fact. The inspector's gaze sharpened on her. You're claiming guardianship? I'll need to see documentation. I'm claiming protection detail, Talia corrected, while Elias silently willed her not to escalate. Guardian Elias and offspring Nia are under my observation. Under whose authority? Mine. She stepped closer, and despite the inspector being a head taller, her presence dominated. I'm entitled to protect those I designate as family associates. Station law permits defense of dependent units. The inspector seemed to realize he'd engaged with something beyond standard protocol. His training likely included warnings about various species' protective responses regarding offspring. Just ensure proper supervision, he muttered, retreating without further challenge. As he left, Elias set Nia down. That was intense. He should not have implied negligence, Talia stated flatly. You monitor Nia with appropriate diligence. Nia hugged Talia's legs. You protected Dad that time. The observation seemed to surprise Talia. Yes, I suppose I did. They resumed their market wandering, but something had shifted again. Talia moved with more confidence, acknowledging greetings from vendors, even offering technical suggestions when asked. Her warrior training hadn't diminished, but it was now channeled toward protection rather than isolation. At a textile stall, Nia convinced Talia to try on a soft scarf that matched her amber eyes. The vendor, a kindly Gretsch grandmother, adjusted it expertly. Beautiful, she pronounced. The warrior protector becomes family tender. A good transformation. Later, as they headed home laden with purchases, including the scarf, which Nia insisted Talia keep, Elias reflected on how quickly they'd adapted to this three-person unit. Back at the workshop, as Nia played with her new magnetic construction set, and Talia reorganized their tool acquisitions with typical efficiency, Elias found himself watching them with a contentment he hadn't known he'd been missing. His workshop, his daughter, his, partner didn't seem right for someone he'd known mere weeks. Yet family member felt natural, as if Talia had always belonged in the spaces between their routines. Part 5. 2 weeks after the market incident, Coordinator Vasquez visited the workshop, Not for security concerns this time, but regarding the temporary resident status Talia had filed. The documentation sat on Elias's workbench, official station seals glinting under workshop lighting. Your application is approved, Vasquez announced without preamble. Conditional on quarterly security reviews and continued community integration. No incidents with Dominion forces since initial confrontation. Your refugee crisis appears contained. Talia accepted a data chip with her new identification. I appreciate the accommodation. I appreciate not having Imperial warships demanding search rights. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. The safety protocols you've implemented for the workshop impressed my engineering staff. Consider it professional courtesy. After Vasquez left, Nia bounced excitedly around Talia. Does this mean you really live with us now? Forever. Resident status permits indefinite habitation. Talia confirmed carefully, though her eyes sought Elias's. Indefinite sounds good to me, he confirmed. That evening, he found Talia in the workshop, apparently cataloging tools, but moving with less purpose than usual. Her amber eyes tracked him as he approached. Elias, I require clarification about the resident status, about the nature of our arrangement. She set down the scanner she'd been holding. Station records will list this address as shared domicile. Other residents will assume certain relationship parameters. He leaned against the workbench. And I wish to understand my role designation. Primary guardian shares genetic bond with offspring. Secondary guardian, myself, represents what classification? Her clinical terminology couldn't mask the vulnerability underneath. This warrior who'd faced extinction-level events was uncertain about her place in a family. Talia, he said gently, you're asking if we're a couple? Correct. The social implications require clarification for optimal functioning. He couldn't help smiling. You know, most people just figure these things out as they go. Most people aren't deserters from military hegemonies residing with mechanics and their precocious offspring. Fair point. He considered his answer carefully. Well, whatever feels right to us. Nia sees you as family. That's clear. I see you as. He paused, searching for words that did justice to what had developed. Someone essential. Someone I trust completely. Someone who makes our chaotic little life better just by being part of it. Those are significant attributions. They are, and they scare you. She nodded slowly. Fear is difficult to acknowledge. I expected elimination or imprisonment. I did not anticipate belonging. Belonging is an active verb, he told her. You have to choose it daily. You have to work at it. And yeah, sometimes it's scary as hell. She absorbed this silently. Then, I choose to belong. Simple words, but they resonated with the same weight as her earlier promise to protect Nia. Elias stepped closer, drawn by the determination in her voice. Then let's try something, he suggested. Another illogical action? Absolutely. He reached for her hand, pleased when she accepted without hesitation. We're going to be a family on purpose. No tactical analysis, no efficiency metrics. Just us. Her fingers intertwined with his, strong and sure. Parameters accepted. The workshop door chimed, and they turned to see Nia peeking in from the living quarters above. Are you two kissing yet? Because I'm trying to sleep, and the suspense is killing me. Both adults laughed. Elias's deep chuckle and Talia's emerging, lighter sound that still surprised and delighted him. The offspring demands narrative resolution, Talia observed wryly. The offspring needs to mind her own business, Elias called back, but he was still smiling at Talia. After Nia's footsteps retreated, they stood together in comfortable silence. The workshop hummed with familiar sounds, cooling machinery, distant station systems, the soft whir of clank on patrol. Tomorrow, Talia said eventually, I have an interview with station engineering. They require systems analysts for the quantum network upgrade. That's fantastic. It is practical, contributing to community infrastructure while utilizing my technical skills. She paused. Not hiding. Definitely not hiding. He squeezed her hand, building something instead. She lifted their joined hands, studying the contrast and connection. In all my tactical scenarios, I never calculated for this outcome. Good thing, too. Some of the best things in life resist calculation. They lingered a moment longer before releasing hands, moving to their respective evening routines with the ease of long practice rather than recent acquaintance. As Elias secured the workshop and Talia performed her systematic security checks, their movements synchronized in a dance of domestic harmony. Upstairs, Nia had left a drawing on the kitchen table, 3 figures standing together inside a bubble labeled, "Our family force field. Keeps out bad stuff, keeps in love." The artistic quality might have been questionable, but the sentiment was crystal clear. Elias pinned it to the wall beside other examples of Nia's artwork. Talia traced the drawing's outlines with one finger, particularly lingering on her own representation, complete with stars for freckles and a speech bubble saying, "I protect what matters." "I never imagined family would be active defense," she murmured. "Best kind there is," Elias agreed. Above their heads, they could hear Nia settling in her bed, that strange clarity of children's perception already weaving their new guardian into bedtime stories and future plans. Tomorrow would bring the interview, another step toward integration. The day after that, perhaps Talia would take Nia to the station's hydroponics bay to see how plants grew in space. Small adventures, daily choices, gradual belonging. For now, though, in the workshop that smelled of metal and hope, 2 adults who had each known loneliness in different forms shared a moment of quiet understanding. Love, they were learning, wasn't always proclamations or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it was simply choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Sometimes it was the careful calibration of shared space, the precise comfort of presence. And sometimes it was a 7-year-old's fierce insistence that this strange configuration was exactly what family should be. The end.